Welcome to Navigating the Future, the podcast where we explore how geospatial intelligence, wayfinding, and smart solutions are transforming cities, businesses, and communities worldwide. I'm your host, Red Curry, and today we're diving into a topic that is so much more than maps and kiosks. It's about connection, accessibility, and the future of how people experience and interact with their environments. Joining me today are two brilliant minds in this space, Brian Monheiser, president and co-founder of Geo261, and Simon Bailey, CEO of T-Kartor USA. Brian has been a champion for pushing the boundaries of how cities think about wayfinding, and Simon is leading the charge at T-Kartor, ensuring geospatial solutions drive real impact. Together, they bring incredible insights into why wayfinding isn't just about navigation, it's about unlocking economic potential, improving public safety, and building smarter, more connected urban spaces. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Simon and Brian, great to see you.
You too, Red.
Thanks, Red.
I'll start big. When most people hear about wayfinding, they think of signs, they think of maps, they think of kiosks, but we know it's way more than that. And I've talked to both of you, and you both emphasize a need to move beyond those traditional approaches toward a more interconnected, a more data-driven ecosystem that enhances mobility. I think you've mentioned economic growth, community engagement. So starting with you, Brian, from your perspective, what is the current state of wayfinding today, and how does it need to evolve to meet the demands of modern cities and users?
Well, I don't even think we use it in the true sense of the way that we talk about it, right? Especially not the way that T-Kartor has built it for cities like London and Toronto, and even the work that they've done for Cleveland. What's really interesting is I don't think people understand kind of the core elements of what goes into even building an environment so that you could run those types of tools and that type of collection of information or dissemination of information. People don't even understand all the levels of data that go into a system like this, and then how to best use that thing coming out the other end.
Simon, you mentioned it to me many times before. Current wayfinding systems today disconnected, and how do you think, from your perspective and even from T-Kartor's, how is it going to need to meet the demand of tomorrow, the demand of modern cities that are growing and the users that are traveling more and more?
I mean, that's a lot. That's a lot to unpack in a little bit, but yeah, I would say, listen, there's been great success stories with wayfinding when it comes to big cities like London, New York. But again, I mean, even what has been done for those cities, there's so much more potential, I think, that people don't consider when they're building on a wayfinding product. And that really has to do, I think, with the fact of what wayfinding is enabling. I think one of the biggest strong suits we see when you're building a wayfinding product is that base core data that you're generating, that cartographic core that really is going to empower a multitude of different either products, whether it's your walkability, Walk NYC type products, or whether it is going to be your traditional metro spider maps, bus map routing that you need for that transportation and moving people from place to place. I think there is a great misconception out there with wayfinding where to date, it seems like a lot of people look at wayfinding as, oh, it's GPS, it's getting from point A to point B. And that's definitely not the case, right? I mean, wayfinding is really, and Red, we've talked about this, and I think Brian, me and you've talked a little about it too, is it's really about the journey and really the place you're going to take people and how you're bringing things to bear along that journey. You want people to experience the city and give them that local guide perspective of somebody that actually has that native in that area that can allow you to navigate things that you would never know existed. Circling up to St. Louis, we have so many great assets out here that just do not come to bear because of the lack of insider knowledge you really need. And Brian and I could go off on a whole tangent. I'm sure he'd love to comment on the fact of problems with St. Louis come about because of the Midwestern values of not really being vocal. That might be its own podcast right there. But there's so many things that naturally happen along a wayfinding experience that can help drive economic synergies that are not coming about But it all starts with the core, all starts with that base layer that allow you to then synergize other products. And we've experienced that when it comes to bigger cities like New York City, where, one of the initiatives that came out of that was this building healthy communities. There's a whole map, a mayor's initiative that started where we were able to take the core data elements from base information we had created and curated for a Walk NYC program that then allowed us to then curate this specialized product under this mayor's initiative that allowed them to find that we're bilingual in nature for that borough in New York, that would allow them to then navigate to healthy food options, specialized urgent care, different things that community really needs, that brought about that community's culture that would help them empower that area. And that was some powerful things, but it was able to also be done at low cost because you had that base information to really drive their needs that mayor at the time under that initiative saw that was a need for that city. And I think that's really an important thing to really talk about and to consider as we talk about wayfinding and the overall experience that is going to allow you to think about for the future.
So, Red, can I lean into something that Simon said? And I don't know when this podcast will air, right? But the 31st of March is the start of Tech Week here in St. Louis. There's an AI day and a geospatial day and a fintech day, and there's agri-tech and all kinds of good things that are going on that week. But as part of the geospatial day prep, Simon just covered something that I think is the most important thing that we should always be thinking about before you even start diving into the what you're going to build and when you're going to build it and how much you need it. Simon literally was covering a problem, right? So if the problem is, if the need is, I've got to be able to get people from point A to point Z, and I need it to be as fast or as easy. That's the why, right? If I want to make sure that we don't have food deserts, that's the why. There's all of the whys behind what you're going to do before you even go do it. It's part of the reason why you create requirements documents, right? Before you ever build a thing. What do you need it to do? Well, I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to support these people. So I think Simon's covering on a really important piece, which is finding that why. And that's one of the things that you'll hear, my partner in crime, Anthony Calamito, saying all the time, because geography has become so ordinary, right? From Google Earth to all of a sudden you had a smartphone, to all of a sudden you had a map of everywhere, to all of a sudden you can find your kids or your AirPods or, your lost dog. Everybody just expects that to happen, right? Like all of this stuff, I see it, I know where to go. No. There's some underpinning data and technology and tradecraft that empowers all of that. Somebody at one point said, do you want to find your AirPods? And somebody's like, we got to figure out how to do that. It's all the why was there, and then somebody figured out the how and the what.
I love it. So what I'm hearing a lot here is that cities today have all the right ingredients to become models for modern wayfinding or the future of what that looks like. And strong transportation networks, like we talked about TfL with London. You've got thriving business districts. You've got growing urban populations. Wayfinding still remains fragmented. It's bits and pieces. It's here and there. It's someone's responsibility somewhere, but oops, not mine yet. What excites you most about the opportunity for cities to transform that experience? We talk about St. Louis, and I really want to stay on that for a minute because to your point, that event's coming up. It's a great example. Do you think cities like St. Louis are ready for this evolution in wayfinding?
I'll jump in first and answer this, and I'll let Brian jump in. St. Louis is a prime example to me of a city that has a great opportunity. And that is the fact of, listen, you take London. London's initiative back in the day was originally spurred because of the Olympics. But what that empowered was where they went. And, when London started, they were talking a couple hundred wayfinding maps around. By the end of it, there's over 10,000 products that are generated and all tracked and assetted and known to keep curated, up to date, and maintained. That is a tremendous thing that has been done. Where the opportunity for a city like St. Louis to come in is not just to replicate what a great city like London's done in New York, but to take it a step further. And that is bringing, as you kind of hinted at, Red, these other stakeholders where you've got your different areas and divisions of the city where it's transportation, utilities, economic growth, and really creating a core stakeholder experience where you can bring a multitude of these stakeholders. They're all getting to benefit from that same information to curate their own information, specialized from the same core data, or generate additional factors from it. I mean, you're really talking about, if St. Louis does it right, they could be one of the first cities, in my opinion, in the United States to be something that no other wayfinding has been able to do yet, because of the ability to bring stakeholders together. And I think that's really key. That could do something that is even better than what's been done at some of these larger cities.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we might have going for us right now, even more so than others, we've had all of those stakeholders in the room. Everybody put their egos aside. Everybody was just there to listen. And we started talking about doing something. And you realize that if you did it, and you did it this way, that might be the way that one person wanted it, but that it benefited 2 or 3 or 4 other people at the table, right? And so they kind of go, oh, well, I get what I want out of that too. But can you just put a little bit on? Can you put a little extra on? If you'll do a little bit more, then I've got what I need out of them. And then I've got the thing that I need specifically for the charter that I have. Again, to Simon's point, whether that's utilities or public works, or you're in charge of the roads or the sidewalks or the bike paths or the parks or whatever. What starts to happen is people realize that a lot of what they're building in terms of that base data, it's an 80% solution for what everybody needs. And you just go and kind of build the rest of that out. But I'm optimistic for that. I'm also, it didn't hurt that NGA built the new facility here. It didn't hurt that a lot of, kind of local power got behind it, from economic development to the Taylor family. They're really supportive of the idea that the geospatial cross-cutting a number of industries is important. And by the way, this just happens to be one of them, right? It's part of a bunch of other industries just having, St. Louis mapped correctly.
And I don't want to bumble what I'm going to say all funny, but hold on just a moment. Because it sounds, I want to flip it on its head a little bit. Wayfinding is more than navigation. It's a powerful force that really connects things like transportation, tourism, public safety. How do you see that collaborative approach, bringing those stakeholders and investors together to transform the cities, not improving just the economic growth for their businesses, but the end user's experience? It's the customer's customer almost. And Brian and Simon, I know you contribute a lot to the community in the St. Louis area and in many other places. How do you see that serving the people of that area better for their customers and the like?
Yeah, I'll take first stab at that. All of the stakeholders have somebody that they're responsible to, right? They didn't get that job to work internally and have no impact to the community, right? Their customer is the community, right? So by empowering them to do their jobs, they end up doing a better service for their customers, which is the community. If you are if you are Explore St. Louis Group, which is supposed to focus on tourism and attraction to come to St. Louis, you empower that to happen better, and you make that experience better. And so to me, it doesn't seem like it's that far of a stretch, because the end user is the citizen. The end user is the visitor. And you got to remember something too. All of the people who are the stakeholders, when they go home at the end of the day, they're a citizen too, right? So they're building something that they also benefit from. And sure, it gives them a paycheck, but they're also, they also benefit from the work that they've done. So I don't see it as being a hard thing to get people to buy into.
Yeah, I would say I agree with Brian, but I also disagree slightly in the fact of, I think I don't think it's hard for people to buy into it. I think it's taking it for granted that the layperson not involved in geospatial is being exposed to so much geospatial data naturally here through Google Maps and everything, that they're not realizing what maybe goes into things. And one of the things I like to talk about a lot with wayfinding is the behavioral science that kind of goes into it, right? There is thought behind color schemes and text and all that to help drive people a certain way. Maybe that is for economic purposes of getting people around businesses and restaurants and all that. It could be for safety, security reasons, right? I mean, if we had an incident that happened here, how quickly can we get people out of downtown? if needed, or if there was an incident enterprise center. There are certain elements that I think could be harnessed that we're not even considering. But I also heard something earlier today. Actually, again, not knowing when this is going to air, I actually had a great. I was attending a GSL meeting where both the I guess the alderman who was running to be future mayor and our current mayor were both speaking. And there was a term that was thrown out about one of the problems they see with St. Louis is this demographic decline, demographic aging that's happening, where our birth rate is smaller than our death rate, right? I mean, it's just we need to get more people to the city and really bring in that younger generation to reverse that trend. And there's still time to do that. Well, listen, a city that has that experience that can happen naturally for visitors and all that, from the airport to the downtown, that is going to enhance that person's experience, or to make them want to live here, make them want to consider St. Louis as what we here all do appreciate. I mean, I moved here 10 years ago, and I had no idea from just visiting. And when I'd come out here for business trips, when I was mostly out by the airport, what this city had to offer naturally and to get around it. I mean, little pockets like the Hill with its restaurants and its Italian thing, and that whole journey that you don't get to know unless you're a native, shouldn't be something that people have to live here and then figure out over time. It should be something that is broadcast or we make proud of naturally. We have done a lot better job with that, I think, since I've been here, but we have so much more to go. And I think there's so much that can be done about that. And I may have gone off on a total tangent from what this original question was, so I apologize, but I just, that's where I get energized, is thinking about that.
No, it's so good. Brian and I do a lot of traveling in the past, and every time I go somewhere, I look like this, just this kid who's a kid in a candy store. Like, ooh, what's that? We went up to Belgium once, but in St. Louis, I'm amazed about things that I saw. The zoo, we went to the zoo, right? We had the T-Kartor company party at the zoo. This is an incredible zoo. Things that I didn't know existed in the city, I may never otherwise find, places I may never otherwise get to go and look at. But you guys have opened my eyes. But it's taken someone who lives there to show me around, show me where to go, where's the fun stuff. But I got another question. Technology is transforming the way business is done. So I'm gonna switch it to something I hate talking about: AI, real-time data, interactive systems. They are going to eventually grow into something that will change the way in which geospatial, in which we do wayfinding, and they are starting to evolve and change how people navigate spaces and places. How do you guys see smart technology shaping the future of wayfinding, from your flat static kiosk maps and PDFs? And what steps should cities take now, not to just keep up, but to lead the way? So really, what is the change in technology, and how are cities going to keep up? What should they do now?
Well, I think the biggest problem we see in a lot of cities that we've kind of talked about when we talk about stakeholder engagement is the stovepiped of agencies or different stakeholders and their data, right? That needs to be brought together in a way everybody can harness easily, and then that empowers the AI and other things that are going to come out of that to basically 10 factor what's possible. I mean, you think about things like the trash and waste disposal. I mean, I call it Internet of Many Things here, IoT, when you're thinking about how you can navigate if you were having monitoring devices on dumpsters and all that, people's trash cans, to know if they need to stop and actually pick up the trash, or if there's a hot spot and they can navigate that quickly. I mean, you think about when COVID hit, I mean, all of a sudden, the biggest thing people realize is nobody's picking up trash anymore at the businesses because nobody's there, but everybody's home trashes are overflowing. Yeah. And people are pissed. Well, you would know that automatically because you could harness that and then geographically display it, so you could navigate that without actually having to worry about increasing the cost of drivers all over the place. You're just reutilizing your current assets to be more, to be more effective because of what and the knowledge and the power of that. I mean, one of the unfortunate things in this area that, has gone on, I think, in the Midwest is, there is this, the dark side of what happens with human trafficking, right? Didn't even realize until I got here how much, unfortunately, the arches, the gateway to the West is almost a trafficking hub in this area, and how we could utilize data and all that and statistics to help empower that to really to help dissolve that unfortunate situation that's going on, as one side note. But I think also, the power of AI as far as wayfinding goes and navigating people and getting people. I mean, listen, it's no different than when you're on your phone and you're on whatever. I mean, eventually, is this going to be a situation where you're in the far future where, I don't know if you remember that there was that old movie with Tom Cruise where he walked around. I don't remember the name of the movie. We'll have to look it up, but he would walk around, and when it'd see his face, the ads would change, right? Based on knowing him, and he had changed his eyeball. So he thought he was a different cultural perspective because he had his eyes switched, and it was like doing that kind of thing. But the point is, it was tracking you. Well, listen, as much as we think about, we're worried about privacy, well, hey, if that's going to happen naturally, is there going to be certain things of, I'd rather give you the information I care about rather than information that I don't, and how I navigate and around those situations. And, will there be privacy filters that you have built up because your phone's detecting that something's trying to get you there? I mean, there's all kinds of interesting dynamics we can go through, but I do think that the way you can generate business and economic factors for navigation is going to be so critical as we move forward.
Brian, you would say something similar around smart technology shaping the future of wayfinding?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to disagree with Simon. That way I could make the score 1-1 on disagreements. No, I'm just kidding. I have nothing to disagree about. I was fortunate enough, and I'm trying to remember how long ago this was, probably like 2016, 2017 timeframe. We were working on a program that was tied to the UN's OpenGIS initiative. And I got to go to Italy, and I got to go to Africa, and I got to go do a couple different cool things. But we went over to Seoul, South Korea, and they legit had a smart city. In fact, I think back there on that bookshelf is a book where they were giving you to talk about all these things. And it was really interesting how they were talking about the fact that they knew where all their parking spots were, and they knew where trash cans were half full, and they could tell you when there was too many people in a certain area. And they literally had built this up and shipped this information out to their community so people could make decisions on, well, I don't want to go there right now, it's too full, or I want to work on this. The fact that we already have so many sensors, right? Don't even worry about the AI crap right now. The fact that we have so many sensors that are collecting so much data that if you knew your why, you would have those sensors set up to do a certain thing. Simon covered one. If your why is, I don't ever want to have to know when I have to empty the trash, well, then your why would be, you have some sort of sensor, you set that thing when the trash can's 2/3 full. Hey, guess what? It's time to empty that thing. There's no reason why all of the sensors can't be used to help us navigate things better, understand our assets better, know when things are running hot, knowing when they're running cold. We already have all of these things. It's a matter of taking the data, doing something with that data, interrogating it, mushing it up, mashing it together to tell whatever the story is that you're trying to tell about your why, and then you're golden. I think our biggest hurdle, and I said this at the very beginning of the call, or maybe I didn't, maybe I just thought about it. It's the education piece of this too, right? Because you have to go tell people why you're trying to do something. And then you have to tell them why you're doing what you're doing and the way that you configure it, set it up, make it work, ingest it into a phone. We literally are so far behind just in understanding our why and then why we're doing what we're doing to achieve that why. And it's nobody's fault. You get rolling along, and because everybody, I mean, this thing has turned, we used to talk about in the military, soldier is a sensor. That became a really awesome concept because anybody who's on the ground with a camera or with a device that's tracking anything, they're all of a sudden becoming a sensor just by themselves. Even if they didn't have a physical sensor, the fact that they see and they hear, and they're sensing things, right? So the whole soldier is a sensor model. Every single citizen running around the planet is a sensor now because they're either collecting some data and that's transmitting somewhere. Hell, Red, you and I were on a call this morning for a little bit where they're essentially doing plate pass, but for people getting on and off of public transportation, right? The sensor thing is a really, really big deal. You just have to harness those sensors, mash that data together, and then have that pump out the other end to solve a problem. But I think we're already there. We just have to make sure we understand why it's hard.
Well, it's interesting because I think one of the things that I know personally hits home for me that drives me bonkers is I will be going out to my wife. We have symphony tickets. We go to the symphony, and this year it's been over at the Stifle, and I have to go to figure out, is there a game going to Enterprise Center? Is there a Cardinals game? I have to navigate to figure that information out in a way that should be very easily for me to know ahead of time. Am I looking at a nightmare when I have to drive over there because of other things going on, events? I could figure it out, but it shouldn't be as hard, and I should have to dig for that information. Sure. It's kind of irritating. But going back to the original topic of AI, I think that and I just want to push on this because I think the biggest problem I see with AI and AI models is that training, right? The training of the data. And no AI model, we all know this, at least I know the three of us do, that AI models are only going to function as well as any strong foundation data, accurate foundation data. You train AI on bad data, you're getting bad AI outputted. So, the ability to, use all this data, curate it that we know is out there, so you have a strong foundation is going to give you better AI results and quicker results that the AI is training off of, be more accurate right away. And that benefit to society or whatever that model is doing or that wide's trying to do is going to be that much faster benefit to the company, the organization, the public facility, or whoever's using it, because it's got that foundation data and those correlating fragments. Or the fragments of data are correlated, so it's not fragmented and giving different results. Right now, you have organizations running AI data on their own data or data sets they found that have not been necessarily curated. And so now you try and take that same model approach somewhere else, it breaks or it doesn't work right. And that's a big problem. We're getting influx with data, and it's that core that matters to make sure you're getting the results you need. That building those facets will really help all members of communities and industries and individuals. So
I love it. This is why I love to say, you guys have got me thinking wayfinding is so much more than tourism and a map on a sign in a train station or at an airport. It really is. And Brian said it and you've said it, Simon, it's live, work, explore, travel. But it's the live is important. I don't want to go by that so fast. We live places. We need to know more about them. To your point about the symphony. We work in places, and who do we collaborate with and who do we partner with? And then we explore the places that we live that we didn't know about, things that existed there. And it's a bold vision because right now everything is fragmented, but your vision, the two of you have, which I'm going to call you on it, your vision is to bring different stakeholders and investors and businesses, public and private sector, to build out a real experience for the people that we serve. And I think that's amazing. But with that bold vision, it'll take collaboration from city leaders, as you've said. You both have highlighted from businesses, urban planning. You guys have said it. You got to come together. People have to come together to make this a reality because it is the future of smart cities, like you mentioned, Brian, that you visited. So if you could give one key message to stakeholders listening to this podcast today, people who could help bring this vision to life that we may work with in different cities all across the world, what would it be? Why should they care? And why is it now the time you feel to act on that whole systems perspective?
I think it's as simple as this, and you actually just said it, Red. I don't even know if you realize you said it. You mentioned the word smart city. That's ultimately a goal. A lot of cities, smart cities almost become a buzzword, unfortunately, that everyone wants to talk about. You are not going to get to a smart city unless you have enabled wayfinding. That is a critical component to really getting to a true smart city. Too many times I'm seeing where cities are going, we're going to become a smart city. They don't know why. As Brian mentioned, they even want to do it. And then they don't even have a wayfinding as a backbone to help get them there. So I think that's really a critical thing, especially as you think about the smart city of the future.
I'll add one that's a little off, but I think we need to have smart people, right? I'm not attacking anybody. People who are willing to come in a room, kind of open their mind, be willing to listen and hear the things. The thing that has to happen too is whoever's on the other side of the room not talking at them, right? But talking with them. It should be a conversation, because you need to hear the challenges or the struggles. Each one of those stakeholders is going to have things that are really, really important to them that are unimportant to anybody else sitting at the table. It doesn't make those things any less important, right? But we have to take the time to kind of rack and stack everybody's concerns, everybody's wants, everyone's needs. It's one of the things, when we talk about some of the data challenges that we have, people will go and build data and create data, and they've built it for a specified use case. Where if you would have done a little bit of different things to that, it could have been available for a lot of different use cases. So it would have been the same singular data set being used for multiple use cases. And if you just kind of, open-minded in how you approach this, I think that's going to be our secret. And I have been excited because the couple engagements that we have had, everybody came to the table, was like, cool, I'm just learning, right? And everybody walked out going, I'm optimistic. I'm not done, and I haven't figured it all out. We haven't figured it all out, but like this was good. Like, let's get to whatever the next meeting is. So I'm looking at progress, right? You can't turn it all over overnight, and you can take away at a little bit, a chunk at a time.
Well, I'm going to riff on that, because this great conversation and those great conversations will lead to something really cool. I'm sure of it. And I think the time is now. So look, I want to say, Brian, Simon, thank you both for sharing your visions, your expertise. And it's clear from what we've talked about that wayfinding is way more than way much more than about getting from A to B, as you both mentioned. A to B is not just what wayfinding is all about. It's about creating a thriving, interconnected urban spaces and places for people, businesses, communities, and that can truly and really flourish together. That's what I'm hearing. It's that together message for the people that you're speaking with. And so for those listening, if you're as excited about the future as we are, let's keep this conversation going. Follow us, share your thoughts, and if you're in a position to help shape this vision, well, now get involved, join us. We're always here to chat. We want to learn more from everyone around us. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Navigating the Future. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Simon.
Yep. Thanks, Red.
Thanks.
That's awesome.